So it looks like we've got a trade war, and China has just responded and retaliated to the Trump 104% tariffs that took place at midnight. This is the headlines breaking right now. China slaps retaliatory tariffs of 84% on U.S. goods in response to Trump. So basically, what's going on right now is a trade war where Trump will raise tariffs and then China will match. Trump will raise tariffs, China will match. And that's where we are. It's like a poker match. I raise call, I raise call, I raise call. So far, basically China's calling Trump's bluff, if you want to call it that, or calling Trump's bravado, if you want to call it that, or Trump's arrogance. We're just raising tariffs on each other here and basically trade barriers. And effectively, like, are we in a situation to where neither country is going to trade with each other? Like in the future, like, is it going to be like this crazy taxes? Remember, tariffs are taxes, basically, where it's going to be up to 1,000%. I mean, what's the bet right now? These are the other headlines coming out. Stocks tumble as China retaliates with 84% tariff on U.S. goods. So, of course, stocks are going to take a dive. Stocks, oil, dollars are down. Bank of England's worrying about correction. We're worried about a U.S. Treasury sell-off, so the bond market's freaking out as well. People are jumping into cash, just going, you know what, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to sit this out and play some cash. The other way you could read it as well is like people don't want to buy U.S. debt if they think the U.S. is going to be deficit spending like crazy and issuing more debt to try to fund the government because, Trump is mismanaging everything. There's that. GDP forecasts are going down. Recession forecasts are going up. And the level of just insanity has reached levels that I have not seen in my lifetime. I've seen a lot of things in my lifetime. I haven't seen something like this. I mean, I lived through the first Trump presidency, thank God. But the second one, man, are we going to survive this one? That's and we talk about sports advertising this channel. It's like I don't know if I should be laughing or crying or doing both. As we said in the last video, my wife's like, the idea is that you're crying with your eyes and smiling with your mouth, right? It is insane. Basically, we've had a couple rounds of, all raise, and then China calls, Trump raise again, China calls. So I just think it's going to be a game of chicken at this point because we know how Trump's going to think. Now, the only thing we don't know is, like, is Trump going to start raising 100% every day, and we're just going to get like to just stupid numbers. And effectively, the taxes are going to be so high that like no one's buying anything or making anything or doing anything, and you're going to get a call from your company like, time to go home. Don't come back to work for a while until we figure this mess out. I think there's going to be a freeze up. I've been reading that. Like, for example, there's a bunch of cars, I guess, sitting at the ports right now because there's so much uncertainty about how we process these things. And it's not just cars, any number of products, or there could be shipments, say in China, for example, that will just stay in China because they're not going to ship anything to the U.S. till we figure out this mess. Because, like, what kind of a business environment is it that you're operating in if you don't know what the costs are going to be? Anyone, who works in business, you guys know this, you project costs. Like, you have to, do your books and pay your people, pay your suppliers, source your stuff, and figure out like how to navigate this minefield that we're in. This is the headlines from Fox News. So they ran kind of a neutral headline. They do that when things are bad. It says here, China responds with tariff hike in Trump trade war. That's from Fox. So they don't actually mention the percentage, because when you hear the percentage, you're like, oh my God, this is insane. And what's the next round that we're going to face? So this is a list of what Trump has at the moment on trading partners. This will probably be updated, and we'll talk about it if we get updates. But you got tariffs 104% on China. That's from the U.S. perspective. Mexico 25%, Canada 25%, EU 20%, Japan 24%, Vietnam 46%, South Korea 26%, and Taiwan 32%. Now, there's an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal, and this was kind of an inside look at what China's up to. And at least from the Wall Street Journal's perspective, in this article, if I had to take a bet, and it's not just from this one article, I'm just saying, if I had to, pick who I think the better racehorse is, I mean, are you really going to bet on Trump as being the better racehorse? Now, long term, I would bet on America. Okay, I want to make that really clear. I'm a U.S. citizen. I think the American system is inherently better than the Chinese system. I'm a big believer in democracy. China does not have democracy; it's a communist system. But in many ways, the communist system, like in these kind of situations, they can do things that the Americans can't necessarily. Like they can hide it from the public if they want, right? So in the U.S. system, like say, I hope we still have free press, which I think we do because the judge ordered recently that the AP's got to be admitted back to the White House. But like we get all kinds of reports of all the corruption, all the incompetence, all of the tomfoolery happening in the White House. Whereas in China, you can cover up stuff a lot easier. So they're going to be able to paint it whatever propaganda they want to put to their citizens, and we'll see. But I think people will kind of figure out what's going on over there. and when you see the price of crap skyrocket, you're gonna be like, okay, I know what's going on. But probably and this is just to be fair, with or without Chinese propaganda, Trump's an idiot. There's just no way to put it, right? I mean, you have to be a blind fool to think that Trump knows what they're doing, to have any semblance of what's going on here, because basically I feel like Trump every day is just like literally rolling the dice and playing Monopoly by himself, and he's cheating on the rules. He's moving pieces around. He's the kind of player where, like, you guys know this, if like you turn away for one moment, he'll steal all the cash he can and then say, oh no, you just miscounted wrong, nothing, I didn't steal anything. It's like that's the kind of person that he is. China has a lot of cards because the Trump people, they act like that they're the ones with all the cards. So something the Wall Street Journal pointed out was basically China could say, and this would be the big one, U.S. companies, if you want to do business in China, you have to give us your IP, right? You have to give us the big, the big thing that everybody wants. Like, how do you make stuff? Now China actually does make a lot of the US stuff, so they know, but to officially get the IP or whatever, right? That would be big. And then their companies would basically effectively could replace US companies for the time being, because if the U.S. can't manufacture stuff, and this is to be fair to Trump and their people, because their idea is like, hey, we need national security, therefore we need to bring all the factories home. But I'll just show you this. This is also coming from the Wall Street Journal. Like, let's say we wanted to make iPhones in the USA, it just can't be done in any way reasonably affordable in terms of like, or in terms of keeping conditions the way they are in USA, right? If you want to lower working conditions, if you want to figure out some way to source, things from all these other countries and like build up this whole supply chain, maybe you could do it in 5 years, but the USA is going to look really, really different. And I mean, how are we going to roll back time to go back to a different year, say the Gilded Age, where you effectively everyone works really long hours and for low pay, right? If you want to replicate, say, what's happening in China. Because Trump seems to, admire the Chinese system or admire, say, North Korea or admire Russia. That's how Trump's point of view is. The other option, if you want to theoretically build all the iPhones in USA, I'm just saying theoretically. So the Wall Street Journal was they interviewed different experts, and they're just saying maybe 3 to 5 years you could theoretically do it. But, I mean, the best bet for most companies these days is just ride it out, wait till Trump leaves office, and don't make any drastic changes, because part of this, like Trump's efforts to bring all these jobs and things back to the USA, is you need the money to come from somewhere, right? You'd have to convince Apple to invest all this money to train up the US workforce, to build new factories, all these kind of things. And remember this, Trump is putting tariffs on everybody, right? So not only are the American workers going to cost more, all the materials to build the factory now going to cost more because we have tariffs on Canada, right? And if you understand what's going on, Trump's basically saying, hey, I'm going to tax everything. I'm going to grift every transaction in the USA, and I'm going to put all that money into my sovereign wealth fund, and I'm going to take that money in that sovereign wealth fund, and I'm going to give it to Musk. Like, this whole thing is a major scam. And I'm saying, and I'm just giving an example of like, do you really think Apple's going to move all production of the iPhones to the USA? I wanted to point this out as well regarding sourcing. Parts of the iPhone, I think the Wall Street Journal illustrated, was like comes from 40 different countries. So it's and China's been building up this infrastructure and manufacturing supply chain for decades, right? So for example, the processor in the iPhone, I'm just using iPhone because it's a really good example. Processor from iPhone comes from Taiwan, the display South Korea, the battery China, the memory comes from the USA, and the storage from Japan. And like I said, in total, it's like 40 countries, like all over the place. And essentially, the modern economy that we have now is country specialized, right? So the basic bet or the basic, gist of things is like, hey, USA, you're going to design stuff. You're the capital of intellectual property. You're going to be the financial capital. People are going to invest in your companies. And you're going to have an environment, right? This is before Trump, because Trump and Musk want to destroy everything. But you're going to have an environment where people, feel safe in your markets because you have, publicly traded markets with open books on your companies, publicly traded, right? So we can see what the financial transactions, this kind of stuff. Whereas, for example, if you go to the Chinese system or say like a Russian system in their markets, if companies don't have to be honest because everything's corrupt, like say if everyone runs their company like Elon Musk and kind of just like be fudging the numbers or making promises they can't keep or just outright lie, like you can't trust any investment in anything. And so like that's why, for many people that is like, I'm never invested in China whatsoever because it's completely untrustworthy. This is what Musk and Trump are destroying in the USA. They're destroying our trustworthiness and reliability. If you guys understand what I'm saying. And so, this is something that they don't talk much about because Trump and Musk are unreliable. And for them, that's not important. All Trump and Musk will ever say is like, guys, I'm just really, really rich and I'm a good businessman and I'm so smart. Just trust me, bro. And it's just like, that's like the biggest con in history is what we're seeing here. China's calling their bluff. And I mean, this idea that the USA is suddenly going to operate, under Trump with this erratic leadership, throwing tariffs on trading partners, friend and foe alike, is a recipe for disaster. And there's also an American arrogance, and I want to make this one really clear because I saw it in comments from people who are from various countries around the world. 'Cause a lot of people watch this channel. The one of the people, I can't remember which one it was one of the Republican people, and they were complaining, that say Australia or other countries, don't want U.S. meat. And if you live in other countries, like for example, I live here in Korea, we have different laws on food, right? We want our food to be healthy, and if the American standards of healthy food doesn't meet, local standards, we're not taking that meat. For example, the USA wanted to basically sell Korea, because I live here in Korea, old meat. Because of what it was is that Korea had like a limit on how old the cow can be, etc. which kind of makes sense, right? Like they just have a certain standard of what you want your quality of food to be. US tends to send quality of meat, the ones that they export, not very good quality around the world. If you're in the UK, you probably know this stuff already. I've told you guys before in the USA, I never heard these kind of things before, but it's real. On top of that, like again, if you can't trust what say on American labels, what can you trust? So for example, there was a Tesla fanboy on the channel, and he was like, "Oh, Chris, you're just so stupid. Elon Musk told me, Teslas are the most American cars in the whole world." And it's just like, he doesn't even know what he's talking about, because what happens is if you control the government, you can write legislation and you can define what does it mean to be made in America. And what they did was they changed the rules to make it so like if it's made in Canada, Mexico, or United States, you can call it, quote, America, and it only has to be like 70%. So you could have 30% from Germany, 70% in USA, and call it, quote, made in America, but it's not actually United States, it's Canada, Mexico, and America. I'm just saying, like that's the kind of shenanigans that the Americans are pulling, be it the Trumps and the Musk, where, it's just unreliable. And like I'm telling you guys, the strength of America is promoting creativity, is promoting education, is promoting this idea of developing our science, developing our youth for the future. It's using your population like to the best of their ability, and helping the people with the most talent rise to the top. What we have right now in the USA, and make no mistake, is a bunch of cronies in office, right? That just hire their family and friends. And if you don't look the right way, right? If you're not the right skin color, you're not even considered. If you're a woman, you're sometimes considered, as long as you're a kiss up, right? I mean, you guys know this. And if you concentrate more on putting on makeup than you do reading books, doing the right thing, then they'll hire you. Like, that's the kind of world that we get in. I don't express my anger all the time on this channel. That I try to keep it cool, but I'm not happy about how the situation is that we're going. And I get frustrated myself, guys. I really do. You have no idea. I wrote a book about it. It's like talking about my book, but it's like, how can I channel this in positive ways? But I had to grow up in the USA where, because I didn't look the right way, guys, I'm Asian. I'm from Vietnam. You guys know this. I was born in Vietnam. I grew up in the USA, and I was surrounded by lots of incompetent people. And I had to see it, like, year after year after year of living in USA, where incompetent people, just because they look different than me, right? Because they look like Trump and Musk, they always get the promotions and crap. And I'm seeing it like firsthand. So for me, I take this stuff personally because I just feel like, yep, that's how USA's run. It's like a bunch of cronies, and it's frustrating. And I know whenever you bring up race or anything like that, people get really upset and oh, Chris, you're so dumb. You're so dumb. It's like, okay. I mean, I just don't know what to say, guys. And I know it's not just me. It's not just the way I particularly look. It's a lot of people in the USA feel that way, to where you have a system where, like, people only hire certain kind of shades of skin and certain companies or certain government administrations, right? It's not everyone in USA behaves that way, but right now the people in power are the ones that they're promoting that kind of system, and they want to erase anyone who doesn't fit that in history. And these are the results that you get. You get a bunch of incompetent fools running the show. So let's hope that this resolves quickly, but I don't think it's going to. I think Trump is a stubborn SOB, and I don't know how this is again. I don't know, but we'll watch this together. So I do appreciate your time, everyone, and I'll catch you all in the next video.